Good morning, everyone from Rochester, Minnesota. I am a general pediatrician at the Mayo Clinic Children's Center in Rochester, Minnesota. I'm also a mom to two little active boys, ages 3 and about 9 months old. And today I want to talk about learning disabilities to kind of start with, but we are happy to take any questions that you might have or you want to talk about. So please send them in and we'll try to get through them all today, okay? Learning through play is one of the most important ways that children learn their development. They learn their development by watching us, watching other children, and by learning through kind of trial and error. And so encouraging your kid to participate in little play groups or play dates, or whether they attend daycare or preschool, is going to give them ample opportunities to learn some social skills, learning how to navigate cooperation and sharing, and trying to do some conflict resolution, which is a really important skill that starts early on. They'll learn their gross motor and their fine skills by playing with toys, or playing even with things that aren't toys. You don't have to have a lot of toys to help your child's development. You can be imaginative and use things like paper boxes, or using your Kittles in your kitchen. Things that you already have at home can be great ways that a child can both experiment, learn things to play with, use their imagination, and also learn to navigate kind of those fine and gross motor skills. So usually we would like to see kids starting to be able to recognize shapes around age 3, and starting to really expand the number of shapes that they recognize around age 4. And then that letter recognition process starts very early, and you can start that with reading with your children, reading to them, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But by age 4, we want them to start recognizing what a letter is and starting to recognize some letters. And by school entrance, ideally kids would be able to recognize almost all of their letters, which isn't the case, isn't what we're seeing most kids entering school, so don't worry if you're not there yet. But trying to help your child by playing games with them, by pointing out letters, even when you're in the car or when you're walking down the street, are ways that you can still interact with your child, help their development, and still make it fun, and teach them how to recognize these letters. Because that's one of the earliest parts of kind of reading and language understanding, is starting to recognize letters and then their phonological sounds that they make association with them. You can't read too much to your child. There's lots of research that has gone on to see how reading to your child can affect their development, can affect their language skills, and can maybe even affect their academic performance and success in school. And you may have heard of the 30 million word gap, and this comes from research that looked at two different household groups: a higher socioeconomic status household and ones that had a lower socioeconomic status and lower education of the parents. And they saw almost twice as many words that were spoken per hour in the parents of a higher socioeconomic status or higher education status versus those that were in the lower group. And when you extrapolate this up to about 4 years of age, it actually amounts to them hearing almost 30 million more words. And you might say, well, big deal, what does the words have to do? But the difference is, the more words they hear, the bigger their vocabulary is, the better their comprehension is, and the better their kind of phonological awareness of words are and word sounds are. And so starting to read young to your child, even as an infant, is really, really important, carving out that time of day. And not only does it help with their language, it helps with your bonding skills. It gives them, or not skills, but it helps with your bonding with your child. And it helps you become present and mindful, and just putting everything else aside and opening up that book and enjoying it with your child. Other things that can help is gives them a positive association with learning and with reading, that hopefully will continue on as they get older in school. So start reading often, and make it a part of your regular routine with your child. You know, even if they can't read yet, you can have them read to you by explaining what they're seeing in the books. And that's an important skill that's not a lot of kindergartners will be prepared for. A lot of times they can tell you what's going on, but sometimes they have a little bit harder times interpreting like what people are feeling and how the characters in the books feel. So kind of asking them questions, and then as they start to tell you and read to you that story, that's also helping their reading skills and their early literacy skills. As they start to be able to recognize letters and starting some word recognition skills and early reading, sitting down and reading together, ages 5 and 6 is really, really an important thing. Just carving out 5 or 10 minutes a day, if that's all you have, can mean a huge difference in your child's ability to kind of continue to read at where we want them to be for their grade level. So the American Academy of Pediatrics used to have kind of a hard and fast rule: no more than 2 hours of screen time per day for kids over age 2. But we have a very different and evolving society from when those initial recommendations came out, and so there was a large push to kind of reevaluate whether is there evidence that younger kids shouldn't be exposed to any screen time at all. Is there screen time that's beneficial, etc. And so they've recently come out with some new guidelines, kind of a more pragmatic approach. They talk about the use of interactive educational programs in younger kids. Toddler age can be helpful with their development, and so it's not necessarily a hard and fast kids before age 2 shouldn't have any screen time. Now, with that being said, a lot of screen time in younger ages can negatively impact their development. And it doesn't impact their development in so much that it's the screen doing it, it's their lack of interaction. And as I talked about earlier, kids learn their development through interactions. They learn their language skills by watching us form words and watching us do some of our gross motor and fine motor skills. And if the screen is on in a household a lot, especially in the back time, it sometimes isn't distracting the child as much as distracting the parent. And so I know as a parent myself, it's easy to get very distracted by all the number of screens that are around us, our cell phones, our iPads, etc. And so making sure those are turned off when you're trying to give your child attention and you're being mindful of the moments that you have together to kind of help their development. So it's not a hard and fast. I think parents are going to need to approach it on an individual basis by age. I think the 2-hour rule is a good thing to keep in mind, because if they're watching more than 2 hours of screen time a day, and this doesn't include educational iPads that they're using in school per se, but if they're doing more than 2 hours a day of kind of free time, free play stuff, that's really impacting their ability to get exercise. And with the epidemic of childhood obesity in America, we really want to make sure kids are still having enough time to get exercise in, do their homework, do their schoolwork, spend time with their family. And it really isn't realistic for them to be doing more than 2 hours a day, because pretty soon it's going to impact those areas as well.